Hey guys, welcome back to the Court of Random Opinion. My name is Lauren Neidigh. I'm here with my friend Megan Fox today. I don't think if you're following this case, you probably don't know Megan yet, but she and I were
Hey
covering the
guys.
Laura Owens stuff together. She's actually written a whole book about what is it called? I forgot.
It's called Believe Evidence, the Death of Due
Right. Yeah.
Process from Salome to #MeToo. And it's
Yeah.
all about it. I actually wrote it because I got so upset during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings
Mm-hmm.
when they sent these random women after him with 30-year-old allegations that nobody could prove were true, and trying to destroy his chance at being a Supreme Court justice. I got really angry about it, and a couple of them were proven right off the bat to be horrific liars, like just
Mm-hmm.
terrible liars, and so I wrote this book, and I basically wanted to go through literature and history to show all the times that I could find that women had lied,
Mm-hmm.
from ancient times through modern times, where I found that they had lied to put a man in prison or take a man's property or murder a man, right? And this is what, because I just don't believe we can believe women. I think we have to believe evidence, regardless of, and we learned that in the Laura Owens case too. I mean, it's a constant problem, and ignoring what we know of thousands of years of recorded human history is a stupid thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously that's come into play here with Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. I've been talking about that a lot, kind of ad nauseum for the last several months. And you have like a pretty like basic understanding, I think, of what's going on
Yeah,
here. I don't
I
know.
followed it. I followed
Yeah.
it like a little bit in the beginning. I kind of lost it. I lost track of the story, and then what I heard, the last thing I heard was that a complaint was dismissed, and I was like, "Wait, what?
Right.
His entire complaint dismissed?"
So the judge dismissed some of the larger claims with prejudice, the defamation claims. And then there was some smaller stuff that they were given an opportunity to amend. They decided not to do that. Why? I guess we can only speculate at this point, but there's a possibility that they could appeal later on that decision. I know Omar and Rachel talked about it a lot, and they obviously explained the whole thing a lot better than I can because they're both lawyers. But to me and to a lot of people, it just felt wrong because the New York Times, which is now they're like totally off scot free. They'll probably file to get their attorney's fees and costs paid. They got off scot free, like the way that they kind of put out there that he harassed her and just kind of like took her side. And I feel like this Me Too thing was really exploited in that regard. Um, it just didn't sit right with a lot of people because it's like there's a lot of stuff that shows stuff didn't happen exactly the way that she says that it happened. And then also there were these organizations who had filed these amicus briefs, and they were saying, I guess most of them have a vested interest in this California law. It's called like Section 47.1 or something, and it's possible that he will have to pay her triple damages just for defending himself with a defamation lawsuit. And I don't have a perfect understanding of that.
That's
Obviously, I'm not a lawyer.
crazy.
It is nutty, and so
That's crazy.
people are rallying so hard for this law because it's meant to protect people who actually go through horrible things. That this man, who's actually been quite an almost perfect ally to women who have been abused, or women who just in general for women's rights and stuff like that, and for positive and non-toxic masculinity, he might be the one who ends up having to pay these triple damages to this rich entitled lady who's lying about what happened. So there's just been so much, I feel like, kind of debate and emotion around that lately. So I thought of you, obviously, because of your book, which I actually have, even though I forgot the title of it.
Okay.
So yeah.
It's kind of a long title.
I mean, it's yeah. But anyways, this is just something that's been on my mind a lot lately because I feel like the movement is being weaponized so much. And the thing with the lady from the New York Times is she was like kind of a very heavy like champion for this Me Too movement going back to 2017. The author for the New York Times, her name's Megan Twohey. I don't know if you really know much about her.
I think I know of her.
Yes. Okay. So she actually was like one of the bigger faces of that movement, and now she's like kind of backing Blake Lively, and it's like where you're taking like everything that you did for women who have been abused and harassed and all of that, and you are now throwing that away kind of for this woman who is quite obviously, in my opinion, been dishonest at several points in time. And I can't tell you she lied about every single thing for a fact. I can't point to evidence to support every single, thing that I think she lied about, because we haven't seen that yet. The trial's set for March 2026. So, but everything that we have seen kind of points to, you were not honest about this. And so I'm like, why are you, somebody who is kind of one of the faces of this movement and one of the bigger voices behind this movement, pushing so hard for this lady who's like not being super honest? And hopefully I'm, making sense. I know I tend to kind of word salad, so you got to tell me. But I'm just kind of, it bothers me a lot that she like got off scot-free, and the New York Times got off scot-free, putting their weight behind that. And now we're watching this person who's supposed to be like everything that you want a man to be. He's like very forward thinking and progressive and supportive of women, and you're watching him pay the price when like that's not what this was meant for at all. And I'm like, what are we really doing here then? Is this supposed to be here to punish people, or is it supposed to be here to help people, this Me Too movement? So it's kind of like, I don't know.
Did he file in California?
So they did it first.
Mm-hmm.
They did it first against the New York
federal
Times.
court. In federal court,
I believe when they first sued the New York Times, it was in state court in California. Then they never actually served, like they were never actually served. So they just let it go. And then they, all of that moved to New York federal court.
That's what I thought. I was like, there's a New York component here too.
Yeah.
So Baldoni moved his lawsuit to New York, which was probably a mistake. New York judges are notorious for doing and I think somebody in the chat said the judge made a bunch of assumptions that a jury should have decided. And that's typical of New York judges. It's very hard to get justice in New York. Judges are, first of all, they're very pro-state. And then they are also very, well, I guess the word is, people get sick of this word, but they're pretty woke here. And I don't know how else to describe it.
I understand. I mean, I've used that word before and people get mad at me, but I'm kind of like, hey, like that's kind of what I get from that, though.
Yeah. And New York is a difficult place to get justice. New York is a difficult place to be a victim of a crime. I'll tell you, I'm dealing with something right now. A personal friend of mine who was a victim of a horrific crime, attempted murder and torture and ARP and all the bad things. And they won't even keep this man in jail. He got bail twice. And the first time he got bail, so this is crazy. He held her hostage for 8 hours and did horrible things to her and almost killed her. And she finally escaped. And then the judge gave him bail. She got a protective order, and the protective order he violated in the first week by sitting outside of her house and stalking her. And they still didn't put him in jail. Then a couple months later, he ran her off the road and was picked up by a police officer on that road who just happened to be there and witness it. And they still gave him bail. This poor woman is living in a nightmare. She can't move. He knows where she lives. She has children, and the court will not, the judge will not lock this man up who wants to murder her. That's what New York is like.
That's
so
crazy.
And she has to live like this until November, when his trial is. November. This happened like 4 months ago. So she's going to be almost an entire year of looking over her shoulder, sleeping with a gun under her pillow.
Right.
And not knowing if today's the day he's going to run me off the road and kill me. And so you can't, when I hear these things in civil court in New York, and it's like, yeah, no justice. There's no justice anywhere in New York. I'm sorry. There just isn't.
I lived in New York for it's like barely like 6 months. So I obviously don't know too much about how the justice system works out there, but man, that sounds terrible.
It doesn't. Yeah. That's how it works. It doesn't. Everything is geared toward the victimizer and against the victim. And I don't know how much longer people can put up with this. I don't know how much longer people can live with this. I think, the government is going to push people at some point where the men in the lives of the victims who love them and care for them aren't going to stand for it, and they're going to take matters into their own hands. And that's what we don't want to see. That's what Nobody wants mob justice, but that's what our justice system is pushing people towards. When you tell somebody you're a victim of this heinous crime, but we won't protect you because we're scared of bail reform and defense lawyers coming after us for doing it wrong somehow. And so we just let everybody go, even though the law says violent criminals don't apply to this rule.
Right.
They do it anyway because they just don't want to deal with the paperwork. And it's going to drive people to do violent things. And I'm worried about that. I'm sad about it. And I hope that it gets turned around before it's too late.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want to see some, version of the purge happening for sure. Like that's not
right. Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody. I mean, we like to fantasize about it and be like, wouldn't it's great, vigilante justice. But the truth is that it's ugly and it's scary. And it leads to a lot of violence and unnecessary things if the government would just do its job. And then we get back to this Baldoni situation. And again, it's like if people start to feel like they can't get justice through the court system where justice is supposed to happen. You're supposed to have your day in court. You're supposed to have your day in front of a jury. And if that can't happen, if that never happens, then what?
Yeah.
What kind of world are we living in? I'm horrified that his case got thrown out. I mean, if you can't sue somebody for saying false things in having it published in the New York Times of all places, what do we have laws for?
Here's what bothers me a lot about that too. So she, claims sexual harassment. However, there's nothing to really back up her claims. Her claims sound very weak, frankly. Maybe she has like her sister who was like a small role on set to back up what she's saying, but come on, man. Like my sister would probably back up what I was saying too,
right.
So,
right.
But here's what really bothers me a lot, and we're going to pull this up really quick. And this NPR interview with Megan Twohey, which just kind of resurfaced because Megan Twohey was the person that spoke, to Blake Lively and kind of did all this reporting, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. But here's what Megan Twohey said about, Blake Lively's characterization of these events. She says, she told me, this was actually not the worst I've experienced in Hollywood. I've actually experienced far worse misconduct. I spoke up because I wanted to address it, and I thought I had, and I never had any intentions of discussing this or going public with my accusations. And so to watch what happened next and to experience what she's now alleging was this complete campaign of retaliation felt in many ways much more sinister than the underlying misconduct. So Blake tells her, this is actually, I've had much worse. This was not that bad, basically. And I can't quote her exactly because I don't know. I wasn't there when she was talking to Megan Twohey. But she says, I wasn't going to come forward with this because it was like not that big of a deal, basically, is what I'm getting from this. And then she was experiencing this public backlash for her own behavior because these interviews that she did with reporters in the past were coming up and people were like, oh my gosh, you kind of seem like a heinous bitch. And that's when she started to really feel the fallout of some of her past actions because of the way she was promoting the film about domestic violence with like, drink my alcohol and use my hair products. And then she's like, well, because my reputation was taking a hit, then I decided to come forward with these allegations of sexual harassment. Not because of anything that happened on set, not because of the behavior, but because of my reputation was starting to go in the toilet. So basically, I looked bad, so I cried sexual harassment. Is where I think we're landing here.
That's not good. Is this what Lively told Twohey, or?
So she's this is Megan talking to Shapiro at NPR, and she's saying this is what Blake Lively told me, but then also Megan is saying, not you, Megan, other Megan,
the other
saying, Megan. To watch what happened next and experience what she's now alleging was this complete campaign of retaliation. So Blake, and I don't know if you know anything about how they obtain these text messages and stuff, but Blake obtained these text messages, I guess, and she alleges that they were conspiring to get people to talk bad about her, basically. And so Megan Twohey here is saying, seeing that was like more sinister, basically that alleged campaign of like trying to retaliate against her and ruin her reputation was worse than the sexual harassment allegations.
Well, that's not okay. That's an admission that, yeah, whatever.
And this just came up again like last week. I don't think anybody was really talking about this until recently. So,
but the amount of evidence that I saw from the Baldoni side was pretty overwhelming that this was not what she said it was. And I'm just still confused as to how he doesn't get his day in court. I still don't.
Yep.
Did they are there any claims left, or is it totally gone?
They had a chance to amend some of their stuff, but they chose not to. I think because those were like lesser claims, and also they would have had to show specific things in contracts, which I can't even give any insight into whether or not that would have worked out the way they wanted it to. But the thing that I think Omar and Rachel talked about was if they were to amend those smaller claims, they would not be able to appeal later on. So I don't know if that played a factor into whether or not they decided just to let it go. But the deadline for them was like 3 days ago, and they decided not to amend their complaint again. And so they're just moving forward, defending themselves against her claims at this point.
Against her claims. Oh man,
Right.
I hate this for him. I really do. I don't like this for him. Although I will say this, and this is probably not a popular sentiment, but Baldoni is the kind of guy who bought into the Me Too movement. He was probably one of the first, he's been one of the first ones out there saying we should believe all women. And, that has backfired on him real bad. And I hope that he's learned his lesson. I'm not saying I think he deserves this, because I don't. I actually do not. But I also think that there are men out there who have done a lot of damage to their own defense because they've bought into this, and no one should be buying into this. We should not ever believe anybody who comes forward with allegations with no evidence. It just makes no sense. I'm not going to believe a man who does that. I'm not going to believe a woman who does that. I'm not going to believe a lizard person who does that. I'm going to.
How many lizard people do you know, man? Other than Slug.
Well, they're all in Congress. Didn't you know?
Oh, shit. I don't talk politics, man. Come on.
I don't either these days. I have completely left it behind. I have no interest in it anymore at all. It's too depressing. But no, I think that it's a silly thing to do, and it's very damaging to just believe people and not look into. Now, it's not damaging to believe your friend, right? Lauren, if you come to me and you tell me that something terrible happened to you, I'm going to believe you immediately. And I'm going to offer you my support and my help. And I'm not going to question you. And I'm not going to give you the third degree. But if you then said to me, and I want you to help me ruin this person's life, I want you to write about it, I want you to publish an article about it. Well, that's when I'm going to be like, okay, well, first, let me see your evidence. Yeah.
No, Megan, please go write an article about how this man ruined my life and he was all creepy and kissing on me, even though there's evidence that shows that's not what happened. And also that I was the one biting his lip and all that,
There's a big difference between supporting your friend, believing your friend, offering your help and support as a friend, to then helping to destroy someone's reputation based on those allegations. There's a big difference. And like, I could help you as a friend to get some therapy, to go to, to get a support group. I can be there for you and take your phone call and talk late into the night with you. Those things I would do. That going public, though, is a whole other thing. So if you want to go public with allegations, you need to have stuff to back it up. And these reporters at the New York Times, anywhere, they need to do their homework before they go forward with stuff like this. It's just like The Sun with Clayton Eckert. Look at how terribly they screwed up that story. Look at how they just believed what Laura was feeding them.
Right.
Which was a bunch of lies. And they still to this day have never printed a correction, only an update saying that she was indicted on 7 felonies for, perjury. But they never offered an apology. No, they didn't even do it.
They just wrote a paragraph in a 2-year-old article.
Yes. They didn't even write a new article.
Just of cunts.
Totally. Yes. And I think the media is very complicit in this.
Uh-oh. She froze. Did she freeze or did I freeze? Hold on. Let me see what's going on here. Can you guys still hear me talking? If you can, let me know. Chat grandma broke her computer. So, okay. She did freeze. Okay. Chat grandma broke her computer. I see some people in chat. Let me message her real quick. She might be going on like an Omar style rant right now. Hang on. You froze. Come back. Okay, so she might be going on like an Omar style rant right now, just like, impassioned speeching into the void. But yeah. No, Slug is our friend. Slug says some pretty interesting things in the chat here. And guys, you guys probably haven't seen Slug a lot because I've never had Megan on the show before for this case. But Slug is not a troll. So mods, please do not ban Slug. My fellow lizards have got to her. Oh my goodness. Slug Entertainment, thank you for the 2. I'm in Congress now. Activate lizard noises. Oh, wait, what kind of noises do lizards make? But yeah, I wanted to talk to Megan because obviously, like I said earlier, she wrote a whole book about this stuff and why she thinks it's important to, have evidence when presenting claims and when believing what people say they're like abused or harassed, which is such a personal thing that affects so many people. It's like, it's easy to get emotional and be like, well, we have to believe everyone who says this or that. But no, it's really not good, because that way we're opening the door for more people with nefarious intentions to kind of abuse that. So I don't like that. Hey, okay. You're back.
I lost the internet. I hope I was good. I hope it was a good freeze face. I'm back on a hotspot, so it could be spotty. I'm so angry with Spectrum. They keep on shutting my Wi-Fi off and no explanation. And there's not even bad weather. It's just, welcome to rural New York. It sucks.
I don't know. I've only ever been to the city, so I don't know what it's like out there. I know I asked, I was like, how far away are you from Manhattan or whatever? And you said 7 hours. Like, well, fuck, I'm not coming to visit you then. Jesus. Because I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
Next
when
month
I
or
say
something.
New York State, I mean almost Canada. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. I've never been to Canada either.
This internet. I think I need to go with, what's that, Starlink or whatever? I think we need to do that. I'm tired of this.
I don't know. We only have Comcast here, so that's about it. Yeah.
Comcast is equally bad.
Yeah. Somebody says, I follow a streamer who had such a bad long-term issue with Spectrum that she's on the short list of being flown to corporate to rip them a new one on their dime.
No, it's really been really bad this month. I've been down for hours and hours and hours, like 4 times in 1 month, and with no storms. And then the last time I called, they were like, "Oh, it's a really small outage. You're one of 36 people." And I'm like, 36 people? So are you just shutting us off for whatever, bullshit you're doing?
I feel like you were handpicked, yeah.
Yeah, why am I getting shut off?
Somebody didn't like your book, man.
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Well, anyways, I want to move on to which something you might not know. Have you heard about this subpoena where they got the text messages to give the New York Times?
No, but this is fun. Tell me about it.
This was another New York State thing, but to be clear, a judge was never assigned to this case. But there's this shell company called Van Zandt that's used by Blake and Ryan to obtain a subpoena. And they got the subpoena to the old publicist who had a grudge against Justin, basically to get the messages off of their former employee's phone. And so they have all their communications, but they didn't sue Justin. They didn't sue the former employee. They sued John Doe's 1 through 10 for breach of contract. So a shell company sued John Doe's 1 through 10 for breach of contract. How do you enter into a contract, first of all, with people you don't know? How do you know they breached it? What were the terms of the contract? And then also, how do you know exactly who to go to and what to look for immediately with a subpoena? And then they just close the case without a judge ever being assigned, without anyone ever being notified that their text messages and stuff were obtained. So it's like this whole sketchy, like weird back channel thing. And that's what they're now, since the case has been dismissed, they're still having to defend themselves. And they also still have the case against the old publicist, Stephanie Jones. That's what they're now kind of fighting, because this shell company doesn't want to turn over any documents relating to that to prove that they're a real operation, a real company that actually has a structure and investors and stuff like that. And like, then also, what contracts are you talking about? And also, what exactly was turned over, why and when? So there's this whole sketchy situation.
How do you, I don't even understand how that works to put John and Jane Doe's.
Yeah. Because you shouldn't be able to do,
so who turned over the information?
There's this lady named Stephanie Jones, and she was the publicist for Justin and Wayfarer, the studio. during most of this, but she was basically fired. Like they ended their relationship with her because there was like all this tension with Blake, and she was basically making it worse. So when they fired her, when they let her go, they're like, we don't want your services anymore. We're going with this person. The person, Jennifer Abel, used to work for Stephanie Jones, and all her communications with Wayfarer and Justin, etc., were on her work phone while she was working for Stephanie Jones. So Stephanie Jones takes her work phone, obviously, when she leaves the company. She got all the communications off of it and hands it over to Blake Lively and her side of things. And basically, they do this thing, and this is all alleged at this point, blah, 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 you know. Basically, they retroactively decided, like, we have to kind of remedy this. We have to have a legit reason for having to obtain these communications. It can't just be like, well, Stephanie Jones told us. So they file this John Doe lawsuit, and they're saying that it's a legit lawsuit by this shell company against John Doe's, that they just randomly decided, well, we should check first with Stephanie Jones and subpoena her for these communications.
Right.
You know,
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. And so
that doesn't seem
right now.
That doesn't seem on the up and up.
No.
What are the have we seen the communications? Do they show anything?
What's that?
Have we seen the communications that they turned over, that Stephanie turned over?
So the communications are everything that went to the New York Times, basically. All the text messages and stuff that the New York Times has.
I've already seen those. Okay, those are the ones I saw. Yep.
And everything that we've seen came from that lawsuit, basically. So it was like a weird like shell lawsuit where they were like, I think Omar called it like evidence laundering or something.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so that's how they obtained all this, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Is they're saying you need to, the Van Zandt, the shell company, needs to turn over these documents to show A, that there was a legit subpoena, B, the structure of the company, that it's an actual legitimate operation, C, what exactly was exchanged. And so basically they have to prove like this is a real company that had a reason to say there was a breach of contract with John Doe's 1 through 10, first of all. And second, you actually did know, in fact, who you were suing, and you chose not to list them, so they couldn't fight it in court, and they couldn't say, hey, like, you don't have a right to these communications.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I'm losing internet again.
Yep, I can see you're pixelating right now. It's kind of like when Thanos snapped his fingers and people started disintegrating. That's what Megan just did. Can someone rewind the stream? Lauren's audio broke. I don't know. I think that's just my voice, man. All right. You guys can tell me if you can still hear me or not, but let me close this out. And when she gets back, we'll talk about a couple other things. Then I got to get back to work. So, hey,
I'm losing my internet. This sucks.
We'll be done in like 5-10 minutes. So, but yeah, it's the whole thing is really sketchy. And then I look at all of that, and I know that the New York Times allegedly, you know, they would have seen that subpoena because in one of the filings they wrote that the New York Times knew how this evidence, you know, came to be, because they were like, we need to see more. And so they know how that evidence got there. And the New York Times and this Me Too journalist used that evidence anyways and said, you know, there's nothing untoward here. Here's what happened. This person was sexually harassed, and this is totally like a terrible thing that this man has done. He's a horrible, horrible person, basically. So,
and they're going to get away with it because New York judges. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then also they wrote it in the CRD complaint. She put it in a CRD complaint before she, and that sham lawsuit was closed the day before she filed the CRD complaint. And she did that so that the New York Times could be protected when they reported on this. So they can't really be sued. Like they tried to sue them and say like there was some bad actions going on here, but the judge dismissed it. So, I mean, there's nothing you can really do. The New York Times can just get away with it because they pulled all the right strings and they went through all the right channels to basically say like, well, you can't touch us. We can do all this horrible stuff and you can't touch us. And it's kind of infuriating, I think, to a lot of people. Like, these things are in place to protect women who are actually abused or harassed. And you're telling me that these entitled, like, Hollywood people can just say, well, I don't like what's happening to my reputation right now, so I'm going to go and fuck with this person instead that I don't like. And I'm going to use all of these systems in place and basically abuse the system, in my opinion. to get what
Well,
I
that's
want.
why, it's kind of miraculous that Amber Heard didn't get away with that.
Right.
What she was trying to do was kind of similar. What she was doing was trying to get work in Hollywood, and she wanted to make her profile, heighten her profile in Hollywood. And the way that she did that was use the Me Too thing and claim to be a victim of domestic violence. And then she thought she could get away with it. And, she almost did. I think one of the reasons why she didn't get away with it was because they were able to sue her in Virginia, where the Washington Post, what corporate was. And so they were able to get to a venue where the laws were better, because California would have been an absolute loss. There's no way they would have won it in California. California and New York, forget it. Forget it. You're not winning in California or New York. And that's the problem. If you can get into a different venue in a different state like Virginia that has better laws, you're good, but not in New York and not in California. You're not getting justice in either one of those states. I hate to say it, but they have very bad laws that don't protect real victims. And I say real victims because we're not talking about the cry bullies who pretend to be victims. They unfortunately are protected by bad laws.
Well, nobody wants to really, and hi, Omar, by the way.
Omar, hey, how are you?
We've
missed each other a few times. I was supposed to be on with him, and we keep on screwing up. We keep on screwing up the time zone. I think he's asking me for New York time, and he's not. He's asking California time, and
he's always late at night. So
I know, and I'm like, no, I stream at 8. I can't come on at 8 with you. So we're gonna figure it out, though, right, Omar? We're gonna figure it out.
Oh, just go to his office. It's very purple in there. His office.
It is very purple.
It is very purple in there.
It is. It's very purple.
And his house. He has the purple lighting in both places. He has the same background and the same purple lighting in both places.
He likes that color. It's good on him. Yeah.
I guess so. He says he's done that like 10 times this year. Yeah.
We have to do our mock trial. We've never done our mock Laura Owens trial. We need to do that. I want to get Rachel involved in that too. That'd be fantastic.
Wait, what is that going to look like?
I don't know, but Omar and I have been talking about it for a while, where we're going to put Laura on the stand.
But who's Laura, though? Are
me?
You
Me.
But then who's Rachel?
Rachel, maybe she can be the judge.
No, dude, make her be David. That'd be funny.
Or we can make her be David. Sure. Yeah. God, I love Rachel, by the way. She's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
Rachel and I need our own. We need our own show where we go to casinos and just play slot games. We are very entertaining on the slots, by the way.
I don't know
if I turn that into
an
entire show.
I can't remember if I told you this or not, but you sent me like that one of those videos of you guys playing the slots, and I was by myself for like my first week in Australia. I was like, I'm gonna do all these things where people aren't gonna bother me, and so I decided to go to this nice restaurant, which was like a nice restaurant, one that I had to wear my good Target clothes, not my regular clothes. And so I went and I sat down at this table, and I was by myself, and I was like, well, fuck it. She sent me this video. It's not going to be, it can't be that bad. And so I decided to play it out loud, which was my biggest mistake that I've made in a long time. And because you guys were just like both clearly wasted and just like shouting at this machine, singing the Oompa Loompa song. And like, she's like so excited because she thinks that you guys might possibly win this thing. And you're just like, that's not going to happen. I remember. I don't know. But there were people around me.
I was not drinking mimosas since 8 a.m. That is not true.
Yeah, but there are people around me having like a nice occasion. I'm just sitting there alone, like watching this absolute shit reality TV show on my phone, basically. And I just like looked around. I was like, is anyone watching me right now? Because I wouldn't blame them.
The best part was that I bought a selfie stick in Vegas because I was like, I should be filming this. Like I should be filming this. And the selfie stick, I'm like, the selfie stick made it so much easier to film. And some of the shots are really quite good of us of us playing these games. It's great. The selfie stick is my new favorite thing.
I had no idea you're using a selfie stick. To me, it just looked like a wasted arm.
Yeah, no, I was using a selfie stick. By the way, if you guys want to see that, I think I have them posted on Locals, meganfox.locals.com. I have a bunch of them posted there, and I don't think I put them behind the paywall. I think they're up there for free.
Oh my God.
But it is so funny. We had so much fun. I swear she needs to quit doing that judge show, and we need a new show where we just travel to different casinos and test out their their slot machines. She is so funny that at 2 a.m. in the morning, at 2 a.m., she's digging through her purse going, I know I have a tax return in here somewhere.
She fucking told me that, yeah.
And she's like, she pulls out her California tax return that's on like a Visa card. And she's like, I'm calling the government right now. I have to activate this. And I'm just going to put it in the machine. And I'm like, Rachel, it's 2 a.m. They're not going to. No. I'm like, it's 2 a.m.
I thought that was a joke.
They're not going to answer. She's like, yes, they will. So she's on the phone. She's like, see, they're answering. I'm like, it's a machine. No one's going to do this for you right now. She's like, there's like $500 on here, maybe more. It was so funny.
I've never met two such brilliant women who are actually so stupid. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's true. It's the blonde in me that keeps me from being really smart, which is why I can only have a medium smart designation.
Oh my God. That was ridiculous. Oh my God. I can't believe it. No, I thought that was a joke. So she actually said something about her tax return. I was like, surely she's kidding. No.
I saw it. I literally saw her. I was there. I think I may have filmed her calling them. I have to look through my phone.
Please.
Because I'm trying to tell her. I'm like,
I'll tell you what.
They're not answering at 2 a.m.
You send me that. You send me that. And I will show you the entire video of me dancing to Bruce's phone call. That's a fair trade.
That's a fair trade. Now I'm going to be frantically searching through my phone. Oh, God. It's so funny.
That's ridiculous. All right, guys, we're going to head out because I got to get back to work. So thank you, Megan, for hanging out and talking to us today. I appreciate it.
Good. It was good times. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Let me end this, and then we'll chat for